Thank you very much, Stevens, and good afternoon again to all of you. It has been a very, very busy day, and just to give to you the information, this is the last exciting moment of today. It has been a very interesting series of speakers. What the challenge that I find is related to the fact that all the interventions have been different. So we have to use some fantasy to find some common aspects. And actually, all the speakers described their experience and the challenges that they have to face to utilize additive manufacturing technologies for their specific projects. I would like to start with Harry. With the Formula Student project has been extremely interesting and extremely successful. But I'm going to ask to you and to all of you, which challenges did you find to implement your project? Very quickly, and so we pass this question to everyone.
For us, due to the nature of the project, one would expect that the challenges that we face are a bit different. However, I think that most of the people starting to deal with additive manufacturing face quite the same ones. And the main is to get people out of the mentality of subtracting manufacturing and the designs that they already know and are established and the methods they already know and are established to something that is new for them. And it's not just take that, which is an established design, it is what I already do and just print it. It doesn't make sense to use 3D printing in that way to our experience. You have to get people to think outside of the box. You have to get people to think additive manufacturing and not think something else and then just 3D print it. And this is especially challenging when we have to do with new people, students, that they have to use that technology and use that for their benefit. We have somehow to trigger them to think in a different way. And I think this was the most fascinating aspect of all this.
Thank you. And the fact that you are a team of all young people maybe helped to reach the flexibility.
Sometimes yes, but when you are in a university and everyone points to a certain direction, you need to find your own way sometimes and get out of the beaten path. And,
absolutely. Thierry, you in your presentation, but very nice as the others, but extremely, you are always giving a different way of looking at additive manufacturing. It was extremely interesting. You focused on the challenge of timing in terms of manufacturing and how additive manufacturing can help to save these challenges. What about the other ones that you saw with your experience analyzing all the projects that you are analyzing?
The other challenges?
Yes.
Well, I think that one of the key challenges is, and actually we see that with the students at Ecole Polytechnique, I think this is the question of purpose. I think that the difficulty is that people are very often blinded by the technology, and it seems to me that one of the issues is that we tend to overestimate the changes brought by additive manufacturing and 3D printing in the short run and underestimate the long-term impact. Yeah. So there is a lot of hype, and typically in an environment where people or students, in this case, have access to many different technologies, they might be tempted to use 3D printing just because it's cool, without, as you said, without really thinking, okay, what's the purpose of it? And I think very often the problem with 3D printing additive manufacturing, sometimes it just looks like a solution without a problem. So you need to be able to find what the problem is and then to use it as a solution rather than to do it the other way around and say, yes, I really like 3D printing and I want to do something with it.
Yeah, thank you. I will ask the same question to Daniel. Daniel and Berta, they work together. And so which are the challenges that you saw, especially with relation to your department, to prototyping, for the utilization of additive manufacturing technologies?
Dentro del departamento de prototipos, el principal reto que tenemos es seguir introduciendo más la impresión 3D. Recientemente compramos una máquina mucho más grande para poder imprimir mucho más. El siguiente reto es comprar una SLS. El siguiente reto es comprar una de metal. así no le podré dar trabajo a Aitiip, pero vamos, seguiremos colaborando porque, de hecho, sí que es cierto que los precios que están llevando ahora a todo ese tipo de máquinas son elevados, cuesta mucho vender al jefe, me quiero meter en este tema, pero vamos, el futuro va por ahí. Si queremos competir con nuestros competidores en calidad, servicio, etcétera, hemos tenido que echar una mano, nos han tenido que echar una mano a Aitiip con sus máquinas, hemos tenido que echar a mano de nuestra gente que colabora con nosotros, porque o inviertes en máquinas más modernas para dar más servicio, para intentar competir, o al final dejarán de hacerte pedidos. Lo importante.
Berta, would you like to add something? Or?
Yes, of course. In our technological center, our mission is trying to be in the vanguard, okay, of the future needs of companies like VALEO, like Fersa, of course, like all of you. And then we start 17 years ago with additive manufacturing. We start to invest in the technology, state of the art. In the past, for instance, an SLS, okay? Yeah. But the idea is trying to solve the challenges of the real industrial cases, going with the companies to cover the functionalize of these parts of the products on the size experiments and the final product at the end. And this must be the bridge, okay? Trying to be as support, okay, without minimizing risk, yes. Okay, and of course trying to training people in the companies, going with them in the day-to-day activities. But the challenge is now is trying to cover the serial production, all of these products, yeah. And really. They have a good point to analyze and to develop new technology, new materials to cover. Thank you.
José, and by the way, thank you for the bag of surprises. That was very exciting. Every 2 minutes you were showing something. Which challenges did you really have to win, to overcome in applying additive manufacturing?
Well, for us initially, as I said during my presentation, was in a small company, yes. Try to implement this type of technology. And almost when you see that with this technology, you are not going really to get pieces, final pieces, good pieces that you can use. Okay, we are working with microns. So our tolerances when we are manufacturing, when we are grinding, is 10 microns, 15 microns. So it's something a bit far right now from some technology or 3D printing, and also we are adding other properties to the bearing, so it's very difficult to get really useful pieces. We cannot use them, as I said, for testing, or it's not something that I can show to my customers. But even though at the end we find our way to use the 3D printing in our company and have good examples in collaboration also with other departments and give some sense to this type of resource, let's say. At the end, the idea is trying to convince the management that we want this, and it's not something that we can give numbers of, if we buy this, in 6 months we are going to save this. It's not something like that. Yes. So it was like, you are going to spend money, and it's like you are going to lose it. It's not going that yes. In 1 year you are going to pay it or something like that, because it's not going to be used for mass production or things like that. And in the future for us is make something similar again. Let's see which are the new needs that we need in our company. Yeah. In this case, it's probably getting better accuracy and new materials, like Berta said, search of the new materials, and with that, maybe in the near future, try to convince again the management to buy a new one.
You actually anticipated my question, which was the second round, which was the related future application. I have one question to you. You showed that you are a global group. Maybe it's a strange question, but do you see that the sensitivity to utilize additive manufacturing is everywhere the same, or there are some regions which are more inclined to use and to try additive manufacturing and others not?
in our case, in Europe, it's something very implemented that really working, and also in North America.
Okay.
So in that two places where we have seen that it's more focused printing, and maybe we have seen more of our customers that they have things like this.
Perfect, perfect. Daniel and Berta, which are the development that VALEO sees in terms of further applications of additive manufacturing, and which parts, especially in which parts that are not manufactured yet in additive but could be in the future?
Ahora estamos con un proyecto con Chrysler en el cual nos están pidiendo piezas como las que he podido enseñar ya en impresión láser 3D que sean lo más representativas posibles. Esto hace que tengamos que que nos eche una mano a Aitiip a la hora de impresión. Es complicado el hacer series muy largas por el coste ahora mismo que tiene. Lo que he comentado antes, es como todo. Antes una impresora costaba muchísimo dinero, ahora cada uno puede tener una impresora en casa. Esto llegará a ser mucho más barato, entonces podremos llegar a hacer pequeñas series, que es lo que yo pretendo. En lo que estoy haciendo entender a mis jefes es que lo bueno es tener máquinas que nos permitan hacer pequeñas series, que no tengamos que estar invirtiendo en moldes, en coladas, etcétera, afuera, y hacerlo todo en interno, y así poder ser más competitivos.
He's saying that now the customers are asking for this kind of short serial production for the new materials, for the new products to be in the SOP in the following years. The activity of his department increased in the last 10 years enormous, as we can see. Start to invest in 3D printers, different kind of 3D printers, mainly for prototyping, as well as for size devices, but now start to short serial production as well.
Of small batches.
Yeah.
Okay. And Thierry, in a similar question, where do you see, you analyze practically all the industrial sector, but where do you see that the additive manufacturing technologies are not used yet, and they could be more used in the future?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I think it's very hard to foresee that, because it essentially, for me, depends on how well additive manufacturing is integrated with other technologies, as I was saying. Otherwise, you will see niches arriving where you need small series, or you need like a high, weight-strength ratio. So, in a sense, it might not be a question of industries, but it might be a question of types of firms. Mm-hmm. For instance, if you're a startup or an entrepreneur, then basically, you have all the reasons in the world to use additive manufacturing. Whereas if you're an incumbent, a company that has been there forever, you have absolutely no reason. And as a matter of fact, you do see these small batches of series from entrepreneurs who kind of can start manufacturing much more rapidly. So I'm not sure, this is a question so much of end sectors, but rather something which is transversal and relates to the size of firms. Yeah. Because you get much more opportunities. Normally back in the days, you were a startup, you would make a prototype, and then if you wanted to manufacture, even in Southeast Asia, you needed to manufacture 30,000 units. You had to borrow money in order to produce, then you needed to wait, and then you would receive the product and sell, or try to sell, in order to get your money back. So it's negative cash flow. And now what's happening, we see a system of positive cash flow. You're an entrepreneur, you make a prototype, you put it on Thingiverse, or you go to your local fab lab or to your local 3D printing bureaus, and when the demand comes, you actually manufacture. So it's manufacturing on demand. So in this sense, I think that's the problem we hear in the unknown, because for a lot of industry sectors, the companies that sort of could use additive manufacturing are already using it. Of course, as the cost decreases, you see marginally more industry sectors who can do it, but I think we have a pretty good picture already of where do we need small series, where do we need a high, strength to weight ratio, and where do you need urgent parts. So the question is much more these sort of newcomers that are going to use this technology, and it's very, very hard to see where that's going to come from.
Yeah.
That's obviously much more complicated. But startups and small firms definitely is the next step.
Harry, your formula is the second car that comes out. I know that you are thinking also about the third one. Which are those parts which have not been manufactured yet in additive, but will be manufactured for the third car?
Well, there are quite a lot of them that we have already considered in the previous car, that the team has already considered in the previous car. However, we are trying to rationalize a bit the use of additive manufacturing and not just 3D print everything, because for some of them it doesn't make sense. However, our main focus at this point are usually parts that need to be customized to individual driver needs, because we don't have one driver, so we need to customize and individualize, let's say, things related to the driver controls, usually things like steering wheels and pedal boxes and things like that. And we are also trying to expand a bit on the structural parts, where we do have a lot of weight to gain. So there are definitely benefits in weight to strength ratio. And this where, for us, additive manufacturing kind of makes sense. So we're focusing on that area now.
Perfect. I have a last question to everyone. Please give me just a very quick answer, but starting from you again, Harry. Your project, of course, is related to the students. How this project has been helpful for your students then to find a job afterwards?
Quite a lot, not only related to the additive manufacturing, but in general, because as I said in my presentation, we develop professionals, young professionals that are ready for the real world. And due to the fact that the team by default has collaboration with a lot of automotive industry and automotive suppliers, a lot of our students have landed jobs, both with OEMs, but also with tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers.
Perfect. Thierry, do you see this is an opportunity for to win unemployment in Europe? Additive manufacturing can help, because there is this debate. Some jobs are gained, but other jobs are lost. What is your view?
Do you have 2 hours ahead? Well, I think if we look at digitization in general, the trend has been that there are more jobs created than job lost.
Yes.
And actually, in the case of Europe, the jobs which are potentially lost are more the ones which are located outside of Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we relocalize manufacturing, then potentially we're going to create some jobs, because you need services, you need skills, and actually this is really true. I mean, additive manufacturing, these are very capricious machines. And there is this new art of being able to figure out what's going to print on which printer with which powder. So I think at the moment, we're rather in a situation where additive manufacturing would bring a lot of jobs, many jobs to the EU. In the long run, some jobs will probably disappear, but again, this is the question of all the services and what you can create around. I mean, the PC destroyed many, many jobs, but if you think of all the jobs that were created around the personal computer, obviously, this is, overwhelmingly positive. Now, there is still a question of policy. Yes. I think that, if we just, sit and just look at things happening, we might have a problem, because A, we might not have a workforce which is skilled enough, and B, we might have some sectors where jobs disappear, indeed. So there is definitely a policy to develop.
And Daniel and Berta, you were talking about the development of your department. In terms of numbers, how many people were working in your department a few years ago and now? How was the trend of the...
El departamento tenemos 10 empleados. A raíz de que vino, nos trasladaron una empresa de inyección de plásticos estamos ya tenemos toda una línea de inyección de plásticos. La tendencia es, y lo que me gustaría, que el departamento de prototipos creciese para darle soporte a ese departamento, con lo cual necesitamos máquinas más complejas y máquinas que nos ayuden a echarle una mano en los productos que ellos necesiten. Por mí, encantado de tener máquinas nuevas y que nos puedan ayudar a echar una mano.
And José, the same question to you. You started small, and now it's very popular in your company. So how additive manufacturing was useful to increase the workforce?
Well, thing is that there is nobody really in charge of it.
Okay.
It's something that just included in our department. We are 3-4 people working on it,
Okay.
but it's not our, let's say, main work during our day by day.
Okay.
So the thing is that we are using this as a part of our designing process, and we have not really hired anyone or take any other people just for using this or developing this, since at the end, all of us, we can use it, and all of us, we can work on it. So it's just a small part of our time. We are using it or thinking of what we can do to implement new solutions or new designing or new tooling, helping other departments or helping ourselves.
Perfect.
So it's not exactly something like that. It's just a new resource that is just implemented in our.
Thank you. And Berta, in Aitiip, you developed quite a lot.
Yes, as I said, we started years ago, only one person in charge during some years, but now, and answering a question of one of our customers in the stand, how many employees are now involved with additive manufacturing in our entity? All of us.
Okay.
All of us, because we are thinking in design, materials, new processes, developing new technology, and at the end is around us in all the business.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Stephen, for all the support for all the day.